Good morning, y'all. Thanks for hanging out with our last minute set change. I think this is a lot more comfortable. I can see you guys. Like to quiet the rumors that because we're interviewing a jam band, we will be using standard English grammar, and sentences do not have to exceed 600 words in length. No, it's true. I'm excited about this. I've gotten to see these fellas sort of just at random points over the last 10 years. It's been just, a few years will go by between, but you see, I've seen the evolution. And just to say a few words of introduction, Yonder Mountain String Band has been together for 12 years, I think is accurate. I counted 4 studio albums and 5 live albums at least. There may be more bootlegs. I'm sure there's a lot of bootlegs out there. More than 137,000 friends on Facebook. They're playing to upwards of 250,000 people a year. And this still seems to be growing after all this time. They recently sold out the 10,000-seat Red Rocks Amphitheater. We heard Chris Pandolfi talk about that show yesterday. And they have their own festival, the Harvest Music Festival in Ozark, Arkansas, which is coming up on its 2nd or 3rd year.
2nd year with us at the head, I suppose, with our name on it.
With your name on it? Okay. And of interest from a business point of view, everybody, as of January, they took on as manager DJ McLaughlin, who manages Jerry Douglas and who spent 30 years working with Earl Scruggs and Louise Scruggs. So a manager with a real heritage in bluegrass music. But let me welcome from Stowe, Massachusetts, Ben Kaufmann, the bass player of the band, and from Aurora, Illinois, the banjo player Dave Johnston. Hi, Dave. Really glad you guys could join us. Are you on tour currently? Because you constantly are.
Yeah, right now we're kind of doing like a little 10-day jobby.
Mm-hmm.
We were up in Massachusetts, and went there via Page, Arizona, and now yeah, that's right. Now we're here in lovely Nashville, and we're going to be heading down south with Widespread Panic for 3 shows.
Right. Well, we appreciate the trip. So we think of Yonder Mountain, we think of Boulder and the Colorado area and that scene, which has this unique history and identity in bluegrass and acoustic music. But none of you, I gather, are from that region, that you made your way there. Am I wrong? Tell us about how you kind of gathered together and found yourself and made that headquarters.
Well, I'm originally from Stowe, which is essentially Boston, because you'll not have heard of Stowe, Massachusetts. And I played music throughout my life. My father was a musician. And so I ended up going to film school in New York City, which didn't really work out so well for me. The vibe there is not really a place I like to be in for too long of a time in a stretch. I don't mind going back for a gig, but then I have to leave. And I was in New York City really trying to figure out what to do. Once I realized that the film world has got quite a bit of pretension in it, and I don't like that. So I was just sort of going out at night, seeing bands. There was a wonderful club, if dirty, called the Wetlands in New York City. I went down there one night, and I saw a band called Colonel Bruce Hampton and Aquarium Rescue Unit. And opening for them was a band called Leftover Salmon. And from the first note, I had my mind turned upside down, and I went, what is this? How do you do this? And where is it from? And where it was from was Boulder, Colorado. And I said, that's where I want to be. Because to me that music represented it had a sort of freedom in it that I'd never seen before or heard before. And within a month and a half I'd moved. I lived in Colorado for 16 years. And while there, met Dave and Adam, our guitar player, and Jeff, our mandolin player. And we met in a bar. We were, there were 20 people picking. And there were picks in this town, Nederland, every day of the week. And people in all, from all sort of walks of life and all doing different things. And Dave and the rest of us were of the same age, and we didn't have jobs, and we didn't have girlfriends, which meant we could tour. So we bought an RV, and we got in the RV. In retrospect, we should have bought a van. It's a better ride and safer, and generally speaking, doesn't need duct tape to hold it together. And we just went out on tour, and 12 years later, here we are.
Oh my God.
Short in the middle of the story. How did you reach out for shows early on? Who were you calling, and what were you promising them? What did you say you were, and how did they know you could deliver a show?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky how we did that. I think that essentially we took whatever we could get. You know, we didn't have any designs on playing even in nice places. We just wanted to play in places. We would show up in towns. Lake Tahoe comes to mind immediately, and we would go play acoustically outside for free, and then maybe play later that night in the club. Vince Herman of Leftover Salmon was a huge advocate for us.
Okay.
Planet Bluegrass, Craig Ferguson, Julie Angela Adams.
When did you first get exposed to Craig Ferguson in the Planet Bluegrass world, where he would know what you were? How did he see you?
I think that he saw us first at a place called Oscar Blues and Lions, where we were playing like a birthday party. Sounds right? We were playing like a birthday party, and Julie Angela Adams' wife had, kind of got us a gig there. And it was really ended up being very fortuitous, because he thought it was a cool thing and thought it was a fun time, and he put us on at Rocky Grass, I remember. And from there we've had a really good relationship with Planet Bluegrass. We've had tremendous amount of help in the beginning from Vince Herman and like folks at High Sierra and those sorts of festivals.
I know there's going to be a lot of interest as we go through this interview to talk about tactics, strategy, business ideas, what it takes to develop and how to push your own agenda when it's before you've been able to hire anybody to push your agenda for you, and how to tell your own story and how to be exposed and make the luck that you just described. So at any point, if you want to go off on one of those, Jacks, I've got a few more questions later on that are specific, but I think that finding the core, the people that you most admire about a scene, and trying to introduce yourself and trying to get known by them is one of the, so how it works in Nashville, that's for sure.
That's absolutely right. I think that we were in a very good environment in Nederland and in Boulder, and it wasn't just musicians who could help you out. I mean, it was like local pub owners and local little club owners and stuff like that, and they could talk, and then they would talk amongst themselves, and then that kind of, it seemed like it almost like would radiate out into other Western states and stuff like that. And I want to say that there was kind of like a domino effect where a good show here kind of turned into a good show there, and then I forget what year it was, like 2000.
I was going to ask about you seem like the year 2000, it was a tipping point year for you guys.
It absolutely was. And a lot of it, I think, is, I can credit the internet, right, which was really starting to become universally, I guess just used to spread information. One of the things that we did from the beginning was to encourage people to record our shows and to trade them. What that does is that makes 20 people come to your show in St. Louis rather than 2, because they've heard shows before and they want to see it. And every show that we've ever played, with the exception of I think 2 tapes that have been lost, have been recorded and are available online for free.
Wow.
And you can download them whenever you want, if you want.
At the Internet Archive, or do you have a central location?
I would say archive.org is a great place to start.
Which is a great place to explore in general. It's one of the most amazing websites you've never heard of.
Absolutely.
What is?
Just for archive.org.
You can get recordings from, because it is quite it's a common thing. I'm not sure exactly where it started, but I'll credit the Grateful Dead, and you can get any of their shows. Yeah. The better recordings you'll have to pay for, but you can get any of their shows for free, including dozens and dozens of other bands, not necessarily within the jam scene, but all sorts of different music. And you can get it for free, and you can hear what the live thing sounds like. Inevitably, it sounds different than the studio recordings, right? But it is a great place to check it out, and of course, free is great. And nowadays, you don't need to buy the CD. You can just download it, and it exists for free on your computer or your iPod, and you listen to it as you want to.
The lawyers in the building are going for their Blackberries right now.
Yeah,
I think I want people to understand what when you talk about Nederland, what a unique place this is. It's a bedroom village outside of Boulder. It is truly in the mountains. It's a very small population. It's really cute and picturesque, and the scenery is spectacular. And it's got this this music culture that comes from where? It predated. You went there because it was already existing in some way, shape, or form. But it's also post hot rise. This is not the original town of the Colorado bluegrass scene, but it is kind of the mothership of the jamgrass scene, if you want to call it that.
Nederland, there's something, weird that happened up there with music in a place called Caribou Ranch. And then there's a couple of local watering holes that, kind of keep disseminating these stories. The Pioneer Inn, which used to feed Jeff and I chicken wings for hosting jams there and stuff. But there's all sorts of lore that goes on. Caribou Ranch, Elton John recorded there, I believe. Led Zeppelin recorded there. Robert Plant, when he comes to Denver, comes up to the Pioneer Inn for a beer. And it's just kind of this legendary place if you're impressed by grabbers of that ilk. I am. There's also stories of Stephen Stills being thrown through the glass window for irritating a minor, and it's all, there's a lot of different things, a lot of improbable things all mixed up in Nederland. There's a mining community, there's, at one time anyway, there's a pretty fairly entrenched hippie community, and then you have, Boulder commuters who want to turn it into Boulder, and it's got like a lot of drama, so it makes for good music.
So to transition into the conversation about bluegrass and newgrass and definitions and big tents and small tents, what would you say? Have you seen that Nederland version of acoustic string band and bluegrass music? I've seen it radiating out and affecting the whole country. I mean, I will never forget about my third Merle Fest in the late 90s when I finally discovered this world, and that was kind of my annual pilgrimage, and it was this great eclectic thing when I remember hearing the first people complaining about the hippies in the crowd. I overheard this thing like, those hippies would leave, this would be all right. Remember when they weren't there? And I saw Leftover Salmon at that festival, and began to get a consciousness that there was more than one channel in this world to tune into. But I also saw them mostly coexisting really peacefully at that place in this beautiful campus in the Appalachian Hills. But we'll take a lot of angles on this, but what would you say about how you've observed or how you've even tried to push out and be advocates for this sensibility, this kind of ethic and idea that was, I think, in some ways born there, maybe borrowed from San Francisco and other places, but there's something, Colorado bluegrass and jamgrass is very distinctive, and it's affecting the country, and some people worry it's affecting, the core. But have you seen this thing radiating and affecting the musical landscape, and how?
Well, Our experience at Merlefest was interesting. I think that what I noticed was there were traditional bands. I consider that to be a traditional festival myself. And then all of that, and then one of us. Right? And of course, the great thing about festivals is you don't have to come see us. There's plenty of other things to do. And most people, when we played, did that. And so we never really connected. And I'll speak honestly here. I've never felt embraced by the traditional bluegrass community. We played Merlefest early on in our career. And because we were not embraced, I consider that to be a wonderful thing. We were able to then say, well, I should really examine the nature of my attachment to wanting to be embraced by this community that I love. I know all the bands. You know, our understanding of the history of this music is deep. We started playing this music because we heard the greats, right? And when we formed, we wanted to be a bluegrass band in our own definition of what that was. Yes, being from Colorado, the closest example of bluegrass band was Hot Rods. But as we came to discover, they're not really traditional, right? Now they have tremendous respect, and I think for a lot of people that come see us, people would say they are traditional, right? I would argue differently, but so be it. Because we were not embraced by that community, we had freedom to do whatever we wanted. And we did. And what that meant was going out to the bars and going to festivals that wanted us. High Sierra Music Festival, if you've never been to that, it is a festival that has all manner of different music, right? And represents what I think. I don't think there is such a thing necessarily as a jam band, right? What there is an audience that appreciates all different kinds of music. Del McCoury, right? And his band, my opinion, the greatest bluegrass band playing right now.
Yeah.
They go, and they can play for all of these hippies, right? It's a dismissive term. And they can go play Bonnaroo, and play for tens of thousands of people who love it. And then also go see a reggae band, or go see a rock band, or go see a hip-hop band, right? But they're interested in everything. They're open-minded, and the only thing that matters is it good? Which, of course, means something different to everybody. But does it resonate with you? Does it make you move? Does it make you sing? And so, because we sort of were free to do our own thing, what that became was playing in bars, having to figure out how to be a bluegrass band with microphones on our instruments that could be louder than the crowd who was drinking and talking, right? And that just informs what you have to do. We had to become louder than they were. You know, you sort of have to make them pay attention in the beginning by volume. And then that was what we began to know, right?
Talk about the infamous IBMA showcase. You guys did a great interview with Nancy Cardwell in our newsletter. We appreciated that interview a lot because it was really telling at a lot of levels. I recommend it highly. It's online. But I'll read Jeff Austin's quote to start you off.
Good, he's not
so
here.
Jeff is not here. Said, and this was in Kentucky, in Louisville. I think the event had a different culture then. I think things have shifted a bit. But so you're playing at the Galt House in Louisville. And Jeff says, Pete Wernick introduced us, we started playing, and then 95% of the audience stood up and walked out. If that night had never happened, I would be an extremely different person. What do you?
That's pretty much right. We're all friends with Pete and
we're before that, I take it.
And we're before that.
He knew what he was introducing. It wasn't to him a surprise.
He knew what he was introducing. He kind of mentored me for a while on the banjo and stuff like that. But we went there and we played, and I remember Bill Evans was there. I think he was working for the IBMA at that time, and he said something like right before he went on, he's like, play some rock and roll, or like rock their socks off or something like that. We're like, okay, I think we can do that. And then, it looked like there was quite a few people out there, and we felt impressed. And Pete had some really heartfelt things to say about our band that still resonate and still motivate us, I think, And then we started playing, and then we looked up from our instruments, and then we were playing to like 5 people in the back.
And the problem, of course, was what he said when he introduced us, and I don't remember it exactly, but I remember it made me extremely uncomfortable, because what he said was, and I'm not sure that this is true, but he said that Yonder Mountain String Band, like 'em or not, is the fastest growing bluegrass band that's ever been, and they play to more people than any other bluegrass band in the world. And I went, oh no. Oh no. And people, they got up and left. And this is a thing that I think about, because I think when people, especially people who are, you know about this community, think about how many brilliant musicians there are, right? Who can play their music and their instruments. They're redefining these instruments, right? And those people look at us and they go, well, shoot, we're better than them. And from one perspective, they are. They can play things more cleanly. They can play things maybe with better tone, with, I don't know what. They're better, right, than we are, but they're not. Okay? Because the best banjo player you've ever, that exists in the world is some kid from China that you're never gonna know. Best mandolin player is some kid from the Ukraine, and you're never gonna know, right? That's the best, right? What does that even mean? What is the case is that for some reason or another, we just happen to have more people coming to the shows. I don't know why. And as a working musician, I don't particularly care why. I'm just happy that they showed up and bought a ticket. We don't sell albums. We don't sell albums. We sell tickets. Okay? And that's plenty fine with me. But when Pete said that, I really did. I'm like, oh, no. And very much expected to look up and find nobody there. And that was the case.
Did that experience and the Merlefest experience happen about the same year? And was this part of a year of learning and confronting what it must have been to come to the South and the Southeast and come to the kind of the hub, the birthplaces, a bit better, of bluegrass music and traditional music, not traditional music, but let's say bluegrass. Were you deeply disappointed, or what kind of reappraisal did you do personally? Because it didn't turn you against bluegrass, which is wonderful.
That's a really good distinction that you're making there, and it's important because to reference like Ralph Stanley, he's like, I don't play for musicians, I play for the audience. And I think that the psychologists call it positive reframing. When you have a bad experience and you reframe it in terms of like, well, we didn't pass muster with the traditionalists, yet we still have a profound feeling and they're motivated by those feelings for traditional music. And it's too bad that they don't think that we pass muster, but you know what, we play for our audience. And our audience they're all 18 to 35, and they're telling their friends, and all we have to do is go up there and have fun and participate in music in an intuitive and creative way, you know, that people can see a human side to what is happening. I use the metaphor of like the cake, and I won't go too long with this, but like if you go see the symphony perform, you know, some fantastic piece of music, they've made you a wonderful cake. And you can come into this hall and look at this cake that they made, and you can admire how it's adorned. You can admire the different levels of the cake, the frosting, you know, the silverware, all that stuff. When you come see Yonder Mountain, you are in the kitchen. There are bags of flour going back and forth, and eggs and knives, and the floor is slippery. You might crack your head on a banana peel. You know, we don't even know if we're making a cake yet. And that's how we attack the issue, you know.
I want to leave 15 minutes for questions from the audience that I have no idea where we are in time. So when we get to, what is it, 10, I think?
It's about a quarter till then.
Somebody holler at me. Okay. I'd love to hear you talk about your what experiences you've had with the Del McCoury Band specifically, when you've shared stages, how you've interacted, how you've gotten to know them, and I'll just leave it at that.
Del always has a smile for us,
That's true.
and he always has a smile for everyone, doesn't he? Talk about a wonderful human being. And the apples don't fall far from the tree, do they?
Yeah.
Right? To receive props, that's a technical term, from your heroes is a wonderful thing. To walk off stage at our first Rocky Grass thinking, oh, I don't know how that went, but Norman Blake is back there and he saw every note and he went, yep. Whoa, we're going to continue. We should continue. Just that alone. Let's do it another year or another day. Del McCoury, like I said, it's the best bluegrass band the world has been. And they fit in so many places. And when we share the stage with them, whether we open for them or vice versa, everybody gets along in that audience. And at that point, the audience isn't 18 to 35, it's 3 to 93, right? Age doesn't matter to me. Open-mindedness matters to me. And one of the things I think that he maybe understands without thinking about it too much is, there's this thing that, you guys know Daryl Anger?
Yeah.
Right? He's a very modern, cool, and smart cat. And we talk a lot. I said, let's talk about bluegrass and what's going on. And he says, well, I think there's this thing. And the difference is curation versus creation. And I like to think about it as an open musical system versus a closed musical system. In a closed musical system, innovation can only come from within the system. In an open musical system, innovation can come from anywhere, right? Curators of art protect it, describe it, define it. They want to share it with you, and they create wonderful places to share it. Creation maybe isn't interested in that so much, right? And all I ever want to do is write a next song and have a next show, right? The curation of it is, which happens with us, is sort of a byproduct. Best case scenario, someday some kid who's never seen us before comes up and he says, I don't like bluegrass, but I like what you do. And the next time he shows up, he goes, man, I got this record by Ralph Stanley and the Stanley Brothers, and I listened to Earl Scruggs, and then I got this thing from the Seldom Scene with John Hartford, and it just backwards. That's how it went for me. My dad gave me Bela Fleck and the Flecktones' first record, and he said, you're not ready for this yet. But when you are, it's going to turn your world around. And from there, I went, well, Bela Fleck, Newgrass Revival, then I moved to Colorado Hot Rise, and what in the world is this? And then the Seldom Scene live at the Cellar Door, one of the great live bluegrass records, I think. But starting to hybridize bluegrass, wasn't it? And all the way backwards. I worked backwards.
Yeah, and I've always argued that that's actually a much more memorable change experience as a person developing and learning in the world than having the Mona Lisa put in front of you and said, this is good. That if you find it of your own, from your own exploration, you build these connections up there that you never lose, and it's a powerful experience. Thank you for that. That's really, really well said. I want to ask some questions about business and audience from a little more practical point of view. Let's see. I want to get really nitty-gritty here. How you guys now have a team and like a salaried operation. You have people who have benefits and it's hard for a lot of acts to imagine getting there. Can you talk about sort of what your business ethic has been since you realized, okay, we've got a real audience where we can do this year after year, we're prosperous, and as you then built your operation into where you are now, what was your philosophy? How'd you approach it?
That's a really good question, and I don't know if I have a satisfactory answer. I think that the nature of what we do, we don't have radio hits, we don't have a lot of mailbox money. No one has bought my banjo book yet. Very distressing.
It's written in crayon.
Yeah, it's in crayon. We travel upwards of, what'd you say, 55 to 75,000 miles a year, mostly by bus, a lot by plane these days. And the only business ethic we really have is that, like, if you can handle this and be a team player, then come on. You know, we're gonna. It'll test you. It's gonna annoy you right down to your very toes. But
when did you shift from doing your own road management and logistics and booking and hire that first person or two to take the things off the hands that usually bands have to do themselves at first?
That would be Casey Verbeck and Partners in Music, right?
Yeah, another way to answer it is as soon as we could.
He saw us at the Fox Theater in Boulder. We had a reasonable draw, and there was two guys, Greg Friedman and Casey Verbeck, and they were booking agents, and they ran a small booking agency in Boulder. As part of the infrastructure of that town, there was a little bit of a music industry there, and they liked what they saw, and they came to us with a deal that was very fair, and it was a deal that honestly, as artists, we didn't even know that we were doing it, but we were kind of dictating the terms of what was going to happen. Like, well, we'll do as much road work as we can, and but we want a lot of control. So we saved some money. We made our own record company. We paid the fines to the fees, sorry, to start our own small business, as a record company and a touring act, and we went with those guys, and it ended up being very fortuitous because they were they were looking ahead. They were using new technologies, the internet, viral video, And just the idea of free shows and getting it out there as cheaply as possible and for as many people as possible, you know.
And talk about video for a second. One of y'all in the band is kind of an avid shooter poster. Is that you? The film school graduate?
I didn't graduate.
Okay, the film school attendee.
I went to college for 7 years until I got my band working.
That was always the plan.
Yeah, it's important. What you want to do, I think, is you want people to know you as you. You want people to know your band, but nobody gets to know you from an audience. Nobody gets to know you. But this is such a personable music. We want people to know us as us. I happen to think I'm a very funny person. And I blame Monty Python's Flying Circus for that.
Yes.
And I want people to know me. I want people to know Dave. Dave is one of the smartest people that I've ever met. And I learn every day from him, mostly big words. But I learn something from everybody, and everyone has such a distinct personality. You'll notice this because we have 4 lead singers in the band, right? 4 people writing songs. And it comes to the point where our audience goes, you know, I know that's a Ben song, I know that's a Dave song, usually because we're singing them, but not always. They have a style, right? And it all fits together, but yeah, in this day and age, you have to reach as many people as you can, and you have to be able to engage them. And there are hundreds of ways to do that. I despise Twitter because it makes me have to say something in 130 characters. I think that is stupid. I don't use that word lightly. I think it's stupid, and it is making us dumberer. Okay? Facebook's better. And YouTube, and well, you could do whatever you want. And you know, my cell phone has a camera and it shoots in wonderful quality. Shoot it, post it, immediately. This is what I'm doing 10 seconds ago, right? This is what it looks like backstage. Look at Adam and Dave practicing, right? All of this stuff, and people want to know because it engages them, right? It's important to understand, learn about technology. We always have to continue to want to learn, right? And use what we can to help our careers, to help us grow as people, to help people learn about us, you know?
This sounds like an aesthetic question, but it's from a business point of view. People in bluegrass there's a kind of agitation about the dancing theme. Crowds who dance, crowds who sit, crowds who want to listen in a, you know, all sound environment versus how have you tried to manage the expectations of the crowd? Have you had, and one of the interesting things about Chris Pandolfi's long essay earlier in the year was this, like, there's a threshold here, and it's not our making, but once we start playing for dancing venues, then the next wave of fans that come to the next city because they've heard about us. If they discover it's a performing arts center where there's a lot of traditional fans there and they want to really sit and listen. So how have you juggled that?
Poorly. Juggled it poorly. Mostly anymore, we're playing for dancing audiences, and I don't have an explanation for it other than